a majority of the inventory that any organization holds are slow-moving, non-moving, or obsolete products. Something can be critical, but it also could be very available in your supply chains.
Hello, and welcome to Speaking of Supply Chain, where we explore trends, current events, and innovations impacting the logistics and supply chain industries. I'm your host, Ellen Wood. Maintenance, repair, and operations supply chains often suffer from chronic inefficiencies, disconnected data, redundant inventory, and fragmented procurement practices that drain resources and erode competitive advantage. Joining me today to explore how businesses can achieve clearer visibility, optimized inventories, and stronger supplier relationships is Paul Noble, CSO and co-founder of Verusen. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to taking a deeper dive into this often overlooked part of the supply chain.
Agreed. So before we get started today on MRO supply chains, let's take a moment to get to know you a little bit better. So our icebreaker question for today is, what is the best dish you can cook?
Yeah, love to cook, break away from the grind and spend some time there. So I would say it's not any specific dish, but living in Atlanta, we have pretty good year-round weather. And so I have nice green egg smoker and Blackstone griddle top setup that I like to play around with as much as I can. And so, from smoking all different types of things, we've tried just about everything at this point, and grilling. It's always my contribution to the meal or the event or get together.
Well, that sounds fun. And especially in the summertime, what is better than cooking outdoors and just getting to enjoy? Well, I don't know. In Atlanta in the summer, maybe not so much. You take your grilled food inside to eat. It gets a little steamy.
But certainly a big part of what I like to do and a big part of our culture here at Verusen. We even have a specific channel on our Slack called Hungry, where everyone posts what they're making or what they've eaten. And it's one of the favorites for sure.
Yeah, I could see that. That would be a lot of fun to collaborate with your colleagues and exchange recipe ideas. We have an office potluck once a month. And so everybody just brings something in, and we have a lot of international colleagues. So we get a lot of different tastes from around the world. That's a lot of fun. I also love to cook, and I don't know that it's the best thing I know how to cook. I do a lot of Italian and Asian food. We have a fantastic international grocery here in my neighborhood, and I'm able to find and source ingredients that normally, you wouldn't even consider looking for in a regular grocery store. So that's a lot of fun.
Those are two of my favorite types of food.
This weekend, I'm actually making an Italian dish from an old cookbook that my dad gave me. It was one of his cookbooks. He gave me my love of cooking and love of food. And it's an old, I don't even know if people know who he is anymore. Jeff Smith. He used to have the TV cooking shows back in the 80s when it was him and Julia Child and pretty much no one else on PBS. And there's a recipe out of one of Jeff Smith's cookbooks, his Italian cookbook, that I'll be making this weekend. And it's a chicken roulade, and it looks really basic, but it sounds like it's going to be really, really good. So I'm looking forward to it.
Those are some of the best dishes, right? I mean, if I'm talking Italian, and regardless of what level of restaurant, 3-star, 4-star, Michelin rated, whatever you want to say, I'll always gravitate to a good spaghetti and meatballs dish.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
As much fun as it would be to talk about food all day long, that is not the topic of our conversation today. Today, we're talking about MRO supply chains. And these have historically just been overlooked. They were just part of, the cost of doing business. They weren't really seen as anything such as a revenue driver or, anything really. It was just a need.
Whatever you need to do to keep things up. Yeah,
a necessary evil. So talk to us about your approach to some of those common MRO challenges. We talked like redundant inventory, fragmented procurement, siloed operations. What does that look like from your perspective?
Yeah, and it's not too dissimilar to how supply chains were looked at overall up until, the pandemic era, where supply chain became a great competitive advantage, and organizations began investing in technology across their supply chain overall, because it's all about really understanding where you're at, what levers you can pull to move to the right balance of working capital without introducing risk. And so, from an MRO perspective, it's certainly you know, that bucket, right? Most organizations, based on the challenges they have with systems and data, the processes of individuals working together, we often say that MRO takes a village, because you have maintenance and operations, you have procurement, you have finance, and all of it's there to make sure that you're, producing whatever product that you go to market with. And so, bringing those together and giving an organization full visibility of where you're at, but what opportunities there are in the data, presenting it to people, allowing them to align and break down, solution and just organizational silos, really helps set a target and drive transformation in this area of supply chain. And so, that's what we do for our customers. And, when I founded the company, really saw it as an opportunity where organizations are blocked by dirty and untrustworthy data. So if I can't trust the data, how do I trust the outcomes?
You can't.
So we plug in and give that full visibility, but also bring trust in, what we've trained from a very purpose built AI solution that can read data, but then also present it to the outcomes that matter for organizations. So it's this combination of, what do we see in the data? What do people know that they would never put in an ERP or an EAM or procure to pay system, which is a lot, that goes into our ability to understand, why do I inventory something and where, and then why do I buy and where from, so that you can really control that cost, and then, really get to a better target of where the company should be from a uh, working capital and risk perspective.
Absolutely. And I think that has its basis in any supply chain project, is getting that data, that first data, because you can't do anything else unless you have a complete and accurate vision of the as is situation. And how do you ensure accurate data capture from the beginning? Is it just a matter of, sitting down with them and saying, look, you have to make sure you have clean data. I don't care how clean you think it is, it's not enough.
Yeah, sure. It was actually, part of our the success and the speed to value that we drive is because we can work with existing data, even in its dirty and incomplete form. We can look at materialized data, free text purchasing, and the model that I mentioned earlier, that was our first innovation, was, what if we could go in and start garnering inventory and procurement and, risk management outcomes across an MRO supply chain without having to lead off with, a 9 to 12 month data cleansing project. And so the Verusen material graph is now the world's largest MRO knowledge base, where we've controlled the training so that when we go in, we can read this data very accurately out of systems of record, whatever Frankenstein the organization's running, and give it a brain, and then start saying, hey, these are opportunities that, low hanging fruit that you can take up advantage of. That goes with, setting proper min max levels at an item level, at a facility level, but then also opening up opportunities to run network scenarios. Ultimately, we want to give a full view of what does the organization need that satisfies the item level individual need at the plant level. And that's often very complex and very difficult. But the training that we've done and the amount of data that we've seen immediately gives us trust, so that within a 90-day period, we can light that up and we can start getting to work with our customers, and they can utilize us as a partner and a tool to accelerate that execution. So they can see both economic savings, but also operational efficiencies opportunities for process improvement, and that really helps drive a sustainable transformation in this part of the supply chain.
Now, I like that you said it integrates with their Frankenstein systems, because that happens over time. Companies invest in different technologies as they're able to, and sometimes it is very customized and cobbled together. It's not an easy plugin, and for the platform to integrate with it very easily and be able to pull that data is so huge. Can you share some examples of how you've leveraged the AI portion of that for that inventory and predictive maintenance?
Yeah, sure. So any organization we go to, like we have a lot of SAP customers, Oracle customers, Maximo, Hexagon, Coupa, Ariba, and we take data from each of those systems, depending on, again, what that Frankenstein looks like. We've built in, simple processes so that it's not your traditional software implementation where, you agree to buy Verusen and then it takes, 6 to 9 months to, for a custom implementation. We've been able to identify, standard tables that nearly every customer has, which gives us information on not only material naming and detailed data, but movement history, supplier history, things of that nature that will train a model on top of the material graph and allow for organizations to really configure it to their organization. And so by doing that, we've built in simple ways to do it, right? So now takes that, traditional system integrator 6 months to stand up a software solution across supply chain. Takes us, 45 or 60 days, depending on, where in line we are with IT, but gets it in and allows people to start working on it. So that simplicity and taking that from months to hours over that period of time is a big advantage of making, as Gartner defines, like the ideal supply chain project, value, low effort, low risk. We've built this solution aligned to that. It's powered by, AI native technology, because we were, like to joke that we were AI before it was so cool. And so that's allowed us to have this foundational intelligence that we're now layering on um, agents and ways to uncover and remove manual processes in a very transactional part of the supply chain. So it keeps doing more and more for our customers, and more of that will be automated and become, closer and closer to autonomous.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about supplier relationships, because you mentioned that earlier, specifically like strategic sourcing versus just transactional procurement. You need a thing, you go buy it. Whereas, having that relationship with suppliers ensures you have more importance in their eyes.
Sure.
That
Sure.
it raises your stature just a little bit if there's a strategic relationship there in place. What does your tool do to help develop those, or build that kind of relationship with multiple partners?
We began looking at this, once we could understand everything that an organization used. I came from industrial distribution and manufacturing supply chain prior to founding the company, which, allowed me to see the pain and feel the challenges that existed there, that we ultimately went out to solve with Verusen. And for so long, especially in the MRO part of the supply chain, procurement and sourcing were reacting. They were trying to figure out what relationships they needed, how could they secure supply, and it oftentimes was against just historicals or inaccurate demand. So one of the reasons that we started with really understanding and really understanding what organizations need and do inventory optimization is because it right sizes demand, and then we can get that demand down to the item level. So I know what to buy if I know what my people need, and they say, yes, this is what I need. It builds trust between these two parts of the organization that are often misaligned on incentives, and allows you to build trust that you'll have what you need, but also do it from a strategic sourcing perspective, right? So a lot of our key stakeholders are procurement leaders that are charged with, and this is an ongoing trend of organizations looking to procurement to be the champion, be the owner of these of improvements, and be able to serve their stakeholders. So, by building trust and identifying purchasing and sourcing to what demand are you actually sourcing against, it greatly improves the execution of which suppliers am I buying from. So we've taken that and stepped it up to the next level where item level data cleansing is no longer really a prerequisite. Better data is always better. We did a study across our customer base, which is over 3 dozen global 1,000 organizations.
Mhm.
We manage over $12 billion in spend, and we started to look at, why does every organization categorize differently, right? There are global standards in terms of, we align to UNSPSC, and we can bucket these contracts and how they buy, and that identifies where there's tail spend, where there's leakage, and gives data to a supplier that they can go say, all right, now I know what you need. So let me secure that for you rather than just guessing based on what you've needed in the past. So those elements and how those associations of how those are influencing one another are really important to be able to empower and allow these parts of the organization to work together, but then ultimately inventory better and spend better.
One thing that I've been hearing you say a couple times in this conversation is these different siloed business units within an organization. And historically, that has been a major stopping point, roadblock, hindrance when it comes to getting any type of project, system-wide project off the ground, because you've got too many different stakeholders with too many different needs and requirements. So what kind of process do you use when implementing within those client organizations to help with that change management and encourage that employee engagement and the leadership buy-in?
We do start even before we sign a customer. We get eyes on the data. We put a really nice and accurate business case together of what we see from their data, and that allows us to de-risk the investment of partnering, but also gives us some targets that we can set as we get all those things stood up. And because we're a software organization and, we have a product that helps support this, we have a great customer success organization that's assigned to each customer. So they go in and they train each of the individual users based on whether a company is centralized or decentralized, as well as meet regularly with leadership to say, hey, here's the opportunities we see, here's what you've done, but here's the new opportunities that have opened up based on usage. So like many things, it's communication. But that also allows us to do multiple, what are typically multiple projects that have to be siloed in themselves and prioritize and, kind of slow roll, so to speak, allows you to do those in parallel. So we can do multiple things. And that's a bit of the visibility we give our customers and partners, and then ultimately, transfers and translates to suppliers that get that information. Again, it takes a village. So we want to enable that entire supply chain. So we can say, here's where you need more, here's where you need less, here's what you can repair, here's where you have, tail spend opportunities, purchase price variance, and that all can run in flight with one another and doesn't need to be sequential anymore.
That's huge just in the project execution.
Sure. Sure.
That surely drives a lot of the buy-in, that it can be done on that quicker timeline, but also that it's addressing their specific needs as you're going through it. And it's not like I have to wait for my need to be addressed towards the end of this project, and it's a 9-month project, so I've got to deal with the mess in the interim and all of the confusion and complication that trying to get this off the ground is going to create. So that's got to be huge. So what is a typical timeline for one of your projects?
Yeah, so we work on the annual subscriptions. Most of our customers enter into multi-year agreements because once we've right-sized an organization or get a great windfall of economic savings, the big thing is that we're learning from all those interactions, right? And so as people change, as business changes, that is also where we're using deep learning and intelligence and different models to not only automate portions of that manual work, but also sustain that advantage that they've gained, right?
The momentum.
Yeah, they can continue that rather than ending the project and going back to where they were over a couple year period of time. And that's been very prevalent within MRO for decades, and why you see so many organizations on a different page. So as we've developed Verusen, we looked at, regardless of what you do, whether you make food or automotive um, parts or cars, or you drill for oil. MRO is MRO is MRO based on some foundational fundamental things, and then we can configure to different industries. So we've created this vertical agnostic, system agnostic tool that can allow us to speed that process up and get customers going into an engagement knowing what their targets are. And we actually put guarantees on those things because we know, once we see the data, we're very accurate in being able to go execute that. And then be able to, within that 60 to 90-day period, light up an entire business unit, an entire country, whatever it may be, or an entire company, depending on the level that they can handle from a change management perspective. All that said, it's a very short speed to value that allows you to either put that to the bottom line or reinvest it in other adjacent projects like EAM or other things like that, where we've been able to partner with different system providers, consultants, so that we're at the table with these different stakeholders internally and externally, really driving the change.
So what are some of those measurable outcomes, KPIs? I mean, you were talking about, having tangible savings. Obviously, that's a big one. Everyone likes dollar signs. But to really demonstrate the effectiveness, is it inventory turnover? Is it, the cost savings? Is it just the ease of finding what they need when they need it? What are some of these, benchmarks that the companies are expecting to achieve?
Driving economic value is certainly always top of mind. And so we certainly are very good at finding money for organizations. And it starts with, understanding the data very quickly, categorizing that appropriately, and then applying it to inventory optimization so we can set demand. So we're most mature in that perspective, or that part of the supply chain. So if we go reset min-max reorder point levels down, next time they order, they don't order the old levels. So there's cost avoidance there. And then we're getting feedback as we're presenting what's in the data, right? So we go from, here's what we're seeing in the data that made us, drive this decision. We've added some explainability AI that says it simply, right? So it's not a black box. Here's why we've made this recommendation. You can accept it, or you can disagree with it and tell us why. And we learn from that why. And then we look at, from those verifications, when will it hit the P&L? Where are you using things that, they look dead, but are used at other plants that you're procuring? And just look at this entire network scenario. So it unlocks, cost avoidance and then hard dollar cost savings to the P&L. And then we take those verified demand signals and then apply that to, most commonly purchase price variance and tail spend. So our customers will inform us, we've selected Motion Industries for these 3 categories. So we'll look at those 3 categories and we'll say, all right, what percentage of your spend over the last year has gone on contract or off contract? And here's how you can, funnel the tail to your strategic suppliers, which empowers them. It's mutual value. So the supplier doesn't know, the user in many cases doesn't know all the things and items that they're spending on and off contract. So by making that visible, it really drives not only inventory and working capital, holding costs and savings, but it also helps drive compliance and cost savings from a procurement perspective. And in many cases, saves a lot of internal resource time having to spin up RFPs arbitrarily just to, you know, oh, we got to put this out to bid so we can get cost savings. That's a really intensive process. And so if we can avoid that, if you like your supplier, but just need to empower them with more accurate information so that they can serve you better, that's what we ultimately want to do across the various MRO categories.
Well, it seems just intuitive that given the data-driven approach, this solution is scalable. It could, whether you're dealing with one facility or two facilities, 10 facilities, 100 facilities, scalable is there. But what about adaptability and resiliency with industry shifts or differing client expectations, as time goes on? And I know I'm thinking about it just because it happened, 2 days ago. There's a tornado that came through our community, and that is a natural disaster that's going to necessitate, the type of, heavy duty repair that's not planned for. So what kind of adaptability does it have, or does it enable for your clients?
Yeah, a significant amount. Like one of our most popular use cases or features in the platform is search, right? So it's very in ERP or EAM or procure to pay, kind of a clunky search experience. And so we identify that most people have uncertainty, over order, or add new materials from, non-strategic sources because they can't find it in their network. So we make it very easy to find what's available in the network in an emergent situation. That could be natural disasters, changes in the market. So they're able to at least see what's available internally before they run a fire drill externally. Additionally, we've been working with a lot of organizations as they bring and stand up new facilities. What assets am I using at these new facilities? Where am I using those assets in my existing facilities? Where do I have things that I can transfer? And on the flip side of that, if I'm shutting down a facility, where can I redeploy things that I already have through my existing facility network so that we're not just going and buying everything for that new asset, right? So it's a combination of those different things, and being able to have that visibility and understanding of the materials at the item level, not just the category level, allows us to do it. So we continue to go deeper and add more layers to it. One AI that we've just released that we're turning into an agent is criticality. So again, we studied our customers, and the data showed that a majority of the inventory that any organization holds are slow moving, non-moving, or obsolete products. They were brought in at some point because these are insurance items. We bought a new asset, whatever. We got to hold these because if we don't have them, it'll go down. Now, that could be very true and very accurate. It often isn't because it's a subjective opinion. What one person thinks is critical, another person thinks could be a non-critical item. So we try to right size that and establish the right criticality metrics based on why the organization deems something critical. So off of that, we're able to say something can be critical, but it also could be very available in your supply chain. So obviously we start with the most critical items and say, why are you holding 2 years when you could really get it in 2 days if you just share that with your supplier, right? So it's simple things of your critical items can be very critical, but also be very available. So don't hold so much. And so again, over time, that contributes to the right sizing of, and build and trust building across the organization so that maintenance doesn't hoard parts as much as they tend to do.
I this makes me laugh because I think about my own personal supply chain as a mom and a wife, and those things where something that you use all the time is on sale, so you buy it in bulk and you have a lot of it, but then you're stuck with the storage cost and the lost opportunity cost of what else could I be doing with this space if I didn't have 10, 15 boxes of the same cereal that I know my kids will eat, but the grocery store's down the road. I can go get another box if I need to. The only reason I have this much on hand is because of a particular thing that happened. It was on sale. So, I mean, that's interesting because, for me, I think about that as a space constraint in my home. But for an organization, when we're talking about, facilities and space that they need for housing their own inventory for their product, for their materials, they don't need to spend that hoarding light bulbs.
Yeah, exactly. And that, you hit the nail on the head there because manufacturing square footage is very expensive. And if I can put another asset and manufacture more products, I can make more revenue, and not just sit on, potentially obsolete parts and things of that nature. And so, by doing that, and then also a big portion of what we're getting to is, really, it's not about controlling your inventory. It's really about securing supply. And so as we can extend the network and an organization can understand what they need and then get their strategic suppliers that information of what they need to hold for them, you're securing supply outside of your network. You can get suppliers to hold that for you and not bring it onto your books before you need it. And so that network extension, network resiliency from a buzzword perspective is really important, right? And that's what we're aiming to do is kind of get outside and extend the network. And again, mutually beneficial. Suppliers sell more and can offer better service, and those things that they're charged to do.
Guaranteed client contract.
Yeah, and being
Yeah.
blocked by data and blocked by uncertainty and lack of trust. So, that's really some of the core principles that we've built into Verusen, and that also we meet with clients all the time and customers, and then get their partners at the table. Right, like if we're all at the table, it's easy to clarify who plays what role, and we can be valuable to the entire network.
Sure. Well, and we've been talking mainly about manufacturers, distributors that have this internal MRO supply chain, because when you have a facility, you have to maintain it. That's just the nature of the beast. But what about companies or businesses and organizations that are in the business of maintenance and repair and operations? I'm thinking utilities companies. I know when we first spoke, I mentioned my husband used to work for Comcast. And so, they have the warehouse full of all the materials that the technicians could need throughout the day. And based on their work orders, they would, go and submit the requisition for whatever information or whatever materials they needed. But how do you work with those types of organizations? Or should I say, do you work with those types of businesses that is their business, is doing this for another client?
Yeah, we do have external partners. One that we announced recently is a company called ATS. They're a outsourced maintenance organization that can do near-term, short-term, or full-time maintenance services, take over the storeroom. And, again, they're bound by data, what's repairable versus what are you buying new. So we can tell organizations, hey, you're buying all this planned and unplanned maintenance, all these planned and unplanned maintenance parts. You could repair those. That'll help save money and also build predictability into when those things are maintained. So you don't have the surprise outages. And then we also work with, companies that don't produce a hard good, but they produce energy, and they need to keep a grid up and running, or a network up and running, like your example. Where do we have those things across the network, and how can we run the network models for hub and spoke or virtual storerooms, so you don't have to physically move things and keep things central, but where they are. So that's all a component of, additionally some of the silos and things that we're working on breaking down, because a lot of times those parts of the organization don't really talk to each other from a data perspective, right?
No, they don't.
It's, I need this. These are the work orders. I'm going to buy everything I need for the work order without looking internally to say, oh, we already have half of it, right? So then
Right.
you only complete 60, 70% of the work. You have all this excess. It goes back into inventory, and then you see your holding costs spike. So it's very applicable. And again, something that we support a handful of organizations and partners on.
So before we finish our conversation for today, if you had one customer story that just kind of encapsulated the best case scenario you could possibly have as your case study, like your number one, what would that story be? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, and we've had this kind of scenario or story line up more and more as we've matured, right? Year over year, we continue to add more capabilities that broadly go across the supply chain. But I think the biggest aspect of that starts with, again, getting in, aligning with IT and business stakeholders, lighting that, getting all of the data up and running, and having that visibility. What we've been able to accomplish is being able to say, all right, now we know what you have. Let's go after this business unit, or collectively these 50 to 70 facilities. We start seeing good momentum. What's been really exciting and where it's going, as I've mentioned, where you add agents into the fold and start automating more and more, we've been seeing a handful of customers that have been with us for a year, 2 years or more start trusting the AI, right? And so they know that if we present them an opportunity, 80% of the time, they're going to say yes. So if it's a non-critical item under $2,000, they can push a button and accept all those recommendations, and it becomes more and more automated based on the training. So that frees up their people to do more strategic things. That component is really exciting, and then how that again influences things that we're building for the procurement stakeholder that can help manage that side of the house more effectively. We support them very much today, but there's a handful of these types of stories where it's great because trust is central to everything we do. Empowering people is a big component of what AI is, the place it's going to have in the supply chain. And we're seeing that come to fruition with the trust of, well, yeah, I trust Verusen to just make the recommendation and we'll take it without poor outcomes and stockouts and things of that nature.
Thank you for that. So it's clear this conversation is just really beginning, and I look forward to seeing all the things that you guys are coming up with as you continue to innovate and improve your platform for your clients. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today, sharing your insights.
Appreciate the opportunity and enjoy the conversation. Look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
Of course. To our listeners, if you found today's episode valuable, please be sure to share Speaking of Supply Chain with your colleagues. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, keep that inventory moving.